welcome to Books and Brew. I'm your host, Andrew Huff. I'm a novelist, screenwriter, all-around media producer. And this show is all about sitting down with fellow authors and getting to know their writing secrets so I can steal them for my own success. Now, here's the thing I know about writers is when we sit down to write, we love to have some kind of favorite beverage right along with us, which usually comes in the form of like coffee or tea. So while we get to know these authors, all about their books and what it takes to be a writer, I get to try their favorite writing brew right along with them. So let's meet today's guest and find out what I am going to be drinking. Jocelyn Green inspires faith and courage as the award-winning and best-selling author of numerous fiction and nonfiction books, including The Mark of the King, Wedded to War, and The Five Love Languages Military Edition, which she co-authored with best-selling author Dr. Gary Chapman. She's a Christy Award and Golden Scroll Award winner, as well as a gold medal winner from the Military Writers Society of America. Jocelyn loves Mexican food, Broadway musicals, pie, The Color Red, and reading with a cup of tea. She lives in Cedar Falls, Iowa, with her husband, Rob, and 2 children. Welcome to the show, Jocelyn.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. You were recently, I think, at a retreat where you met up with Erica Vetch. And so that's how we got connected, and which is awesome because I am super excited to hear all about we're going to be talking a little bit about retreats, but just hearing about your experience as a writer. And the thing that I didn't mention in your bio, but we're going to get into, I'm sure, at some point, is you actually didn't start out as a fiction writer. You didn't even start out as a nonfiction writer. And so, I mean, you kind of did. I mean, more nonfiction book writer, right? You wrote nonfiction as a journalist. And so anyway, Yep. we're gonna talk all about that. But hey, yeah, this show's about writing. We're gonna talk all about it, but that's all on the side. I want to try your favorite writing brew. So why don't you introduce what I'm going to be drinking today?
Okay. Well, Andrew, today you are going to be drinking one of my very favorite teas from our local tea shop here in Cedar Falls, Iowa. It's called the name of the shop is called Tea Cellar. And the drink, I've already poured mine. This is called Mama's Apple Pie. Pie is important to me. It's in my bio. And so the fact that there's a tea that's all about pie, I love it. I hope you like it. You know, I'm married to a man who's not into fruity teas. So we'll see how it goes. But I usually write with a little pot like this. And yes, I drink a lot of tea throughout the writing day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just poured the hot water into it. We're going to let it steep for 5 minutes. And so you have 5 minutes to pitch us every single one of your books that you want us to buy. And
wow. Oh man, what an intro. Well, how about I just talk about the series that I'm kind of wrapping up right now.
That's great.
It's called the Windy City Saga, and it's a 3-book series set in Chicago, and it follows members of one family, but each book is set 22 years apart so that we experience different eras of Chicago. The first one is Veiled in Smoke, and it takes place during and after the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which, by the way, this October is the 150th anniversary of the Great Fire.
Wow.
Which, you know, being a history person, I get really excited about anniversaries that are nice round numbers. So I'm like, hey, everybody, it's the 150th anniversary.
Yeah.
The second book in the series,
but that's because of an OCD thing. So,
anyway. Well, as long as it's history related, I can relate to that. The second book is Shadows of the White City, and it's in Chicago, but it's in 1893 during the World's Fair. And this is the younger sister of the protagonist in the first book. She's 43 years old, so I was glad that I got to write a protagonist who was my age instead of, writing about all these young whippersnappers.
Right.
And the third book in the series is coming out next February. It's called Drawn by the Current. And it's about a little known event that happened in Chicago in 1915 called the Eastland disaster. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay. Well, you're one of most people have not. The Eastland was a steamship. And in the summer of 1915, it was packed full of 2,500 people they worked at Western Electric. They were getting ready to go on a company picnic right there in the river, and the ship just tipped over, and
Oh my gosh.
844 people died because, and it was still tied up to the docks. Like it was still tied to the
It
docks and
just
it
fell
tipped
over.
over.
Wow.
And, it was really, I think, overshadowed by the Lusitania, which had just been
Mm,
torpedoed about 6 weeks prior. And of course, Titanic had happened 3 years prior to that, too. So there hasn't been a lot written about it. So that's actually the kind of thing that I love to write about, to find something that really happened and say, wait a second, what? We need to know about this. Let's
yeah.
explore. So that's exactly the kind of story that I like to write.
That's awesome. I love that kind of approach because even though I don't write historical fiction, I love taking real life events that have occurred and weaving them in a new way into a story. And so that's typically my approach to it is, oh, this is a really cool thing that actually happened. Now, the way I write about it, because I'm writing suspense and it's sort of its own fictional world that's much like ours, but I can play around a little bit more in it.
Sure.
I take elements of it and kind of weave it into a new way, into a new story. But I kind of feel like the real life events that have happened
Mm-hmm.
are way more interesting than anything I could dream up.
That is exactly my philosophy. I always tell people, like, I'm not all that creative. You mentioned before that I started off as a journalist, and the most important thing you can do as a journalist is find the stories that are already out there and give them voice. And so I feel like my best ideas just come from stuff that's already happened. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm right there with you.
That's awesome. Still a couple more minutes. So I know, right? Are you
Yeah.
working on anything secret at the moment? That would be that's coming after the Windy City Saga.
Well,
I know
it's
you're a
not.
writer, so
Yeah. So I am working on the next series already. It's not too much of a secret. I just haven't talked about it yet a whole lot. But the next series will be set in New York City, and all the protagonists work at different museums,
Mm.
which I know doesn't sound very exciting to a lot of people, but there will be art fraud and probably some murder and some mystery. And so that's what I'm working on. I
Do
just
any of the exhibits come to life? Because I mean, that could be.
That's what my editor asked when I pitched one of the ideas set at the Museum of Natural History. And he's like, so it comes to life at night. And I was like, close,
Right.
close. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Bad news. It's already been done.
Right. If only I thought of it first.
Yeah. Right.
Do a little genre bending there with the
Yeah.
whole
So if you're
historical.
gonna have a little bit of art fraud and a little, it's still gonna be historical fiction? Or are you starting
Yeah,
to
it's still going to be historical, set in the 1920s. And like right after the opening of King Tut's tomb, where everybody was just going crazy for all things Egyptology. And so everybody
mm,
wanted to have like a piece of it, a piece of
that's
like
fun.
something
Yeah.
Egyptian. And so there were a lot of forgeries. And of course, there's prohibition going on and a little bit of mafia in there. So there will definitely
That's
be a
great.
historical backdrop. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great time frame too.
Mm-hmm.
For those kind of stories. All right. 5 minutes is up. So the tea has steeped. I have, you can't see it, but the viewers on the coffee can will be able to see. I have this little strainer that is really cool, and I'm pulling it out. It does smell like apple pie. I'm gonna go ahead and let everybody know. Sometimes when you get a flavored coffee or a flavored
Mm-hmm.
tea, it may not have you may have to like sip it to get the taste or whatever. This is
Right.
strong apple pie right now.
For me, that's a yay. But if
I know,
you're
right?
not a fan of apple
No,
pie,
look,
then
I
I don't
said,
know.
I'm like,
You're getting there.
it even
Okay.
has the apple pie color. I
Yes.
don't,
Oh,
it is pure apple pie over here
I
in a
think it's a
cup.
winner.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Now here's the thing about the show. I don't review it till the end.
I know. I know. I'm
So
going to be dying of suspense the whole
I
time.
know. Yeah. Well, I'm a suspense author.
Well,
So
there
clearly,
you go.
so I'm going to take the sip and you just got to judge what's happening
Okay.
in my, with my taste buds and my brain and all of
With your
that.
poker face. Yeah.
Just, all right, here we go. First sip. All right. I'm not telling you what I think.
No, you're not.
So there we go.
Okay.
All right. Hey, we have our tea.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know, now that we're drinking the same kind of tea as Jocelyn Green, how we can be as successful as you have been. So we're going to dive into your writing secrets. Now, recently, I mentioned up at the top, we were going to talk a little bit about writers' retreats.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of the things that I really like doing with this show is peeling back the curtain a little bit on just us as writers, what we do, what it takes to write a book. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about retreats and the benefit of those, the different types. Let's start with a writer's retreat, because what I think is really fun is I've done a couple of what I call writing retreats, which are really just, I'm on a deadline and I need to not be bothered by children. And so I'm going to go, off for a day or off for a couple of days. And that's all I'm doing is writing,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of consider those, I call them retreats because, I'm retreating from sort of normal life and really just focusing on writing. But what I haven't done, which you have been able to do, is go on a retreat with other writers. And so here's what I would say. I as much as I have done writing I've done a couple of these like solo writing retreats, it can be a little bit tricky. You'd have to, people are going to come at this in different ways based on your personality, because for me, I might be okay going off on my own and really just churning through something, because I have a lot of focus and, I'm better off by myself, or not better off, but like, I'm okay by myself, like motivating myself and all that kind of thing. Whereas I can see the benefit of having other writers, going on a retreat with other writers, because then you have other people you can bounce ideas off of, and you have people that can motivate you. So anyway, I kind of want to hear your perspective on that experience and what you thought of it.
Sure. So I went to my very first writer's retreat this summer in Little Falls, Minnesota. And I'm trying to think of how many writers were there. It was more than a dozen. It was like in this historic home. There were a lot of us there. And I decided to go because it hit me at my writing schedule at the right time, that I hadn't actually started the next book yet. And what I struggle with the most in the writing process is the brainstorming and like getting the right ideas. So for me, the best benefit that I experienced and what I was really hoping for was just the ability to sit down with some other writers and do like a group brainstorming session. So even though there were a lot of us, they did different things. Like some of them after breakfast, they went and found a corner and they wrote. I went with the group of like 5 other writers, and we took turns just sharing like, this is what I know. And then we had a specific question. Otherwise, it's too nebulous. It just wouldn't work. It would fall apart. So this is what I know, and this is what I'm trying to figure out. And then you have 5 other people who don't care about, a bad idea. And so they're just like firing things off. And I found it extremely helpful. The other thing that I liked about the writer's retreat is that all of the meals were prepared and served in the same building. And so I mean, that was pretty luxurious for me, like not having to think about where the food is coming from and not having to feed other people. I love my family, but not having to do that was great. But as far as actual writing that got done, if you read my blog post, you already know that the thing that I wrote on the writer's retreat was a single email. And I don't know that you would necessarily have to go on a writer's retreat to do that, but it was the email to my editors explaining like the new ideas that I had that came out of the brainstorming session, which ended up working. So that was really valuable for me. And you're right, it can be approached in different ways. Some people get together with other writers and they're like, well, shoot, I don't want to write. I want to socialize. And then there are those of us who are like, I'm here to work, but I feel pretty guilty about not being with the other writers. So I think there's a difference between a writer's retreat and a writing retreat. Like the kind that you did. I would like to try that sometime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about your background, because what's also fun is I don't think you uh, set out to be a fiction writer.
Oh, I didn't.
And somehow you ended up being a fiction writer. So,
Yes, which is actually great because I think I ran out of nonfiction things to say and I can make up stories.
right.
Yeah, so I started off as a journalist and a freelance journalist, actually, because I met my husband in Washington, D.C. He was in the Coast Guard. And so right after we got married, like 2 days after we got married, we moved to Alaska. So I had to stop my editor job on Capitol Hill and move to Alaska. And I was like, this is a good time to start freelance journalism.
Right.
And so I did that. And that was what I thought was just going to be my thing. But then as a military wife, I just realized I think there should be a devotional book for military wives. And at the time, there wasn't one out there. So I
Mm.
thought, I'll do that after my husband's been in the service for 20 years, then I'll have credibility and then I'll do that. Um, but then he decided to get out after our first year of marriage. So I'm like, well, time to write a book proposal.
Nice.
So I connected with 14 other military wives from other branches of service and to do like a compilation. But in that
Mm.
way, I was drawing from other women's experiences, people who have good things to say, but they
Hmm.
don't have a whole book in them. And
Hmm.
was able to use like all the skills that I had been honing through journalism and through editing and project managing worked out really well for this book. And so that was the first book that was published for me. It was called Faith Deployed, Daily Encouragement for Military Wives. And then there was a slew of other like military nonfiction books that came after that. And then one day I was talking to my editor about one of the nonfiction books, and she said, we think we're going to do more fiction here. Have you ever thought about writing fiction? And I was like, well, thinking about it is a lot different from being able to do it. I didn't say that out loud, but I was like, I've thought about it. And then she said, well, what do you think you would write about? And I had just gotten back from Gettysburg, where I had been plumbing the depths of the Adams County Historical Society for a nonfiction book. And I just told her about some of the amazing stories that I had found that women
Mm.
had written down from, like, they had lived through the Battle of Gettysburg. They were just like housewives, like, the term that was in
Hmm.
use back then. And she said, great, send me a proposal. So I hung up the phone and drove to Barnes and Noble and bought all the books on how to write a novel.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's different. It's different. And actually, when I was writing nonfiction, there is an interview somewhere on the internet where the person said, do you think you're ever going to write fiction? And I said, totally no, I'm never going to do it. I
Yeah.
respect all the people who can do it. I can't do it. But I did. So I pitched a
I
4-book
have
Civil
always
War
found when
series.
when you say that, God's sense of humor is such that he's like,
Yes.
I'm gonna make it where they do that.
Yeah, he did. He totally did. And so that was the start. That was the 4-book Civil War series, Heroines Behind the Lines. And then right after that series finished, that was Moody Publishers. They decided to no longer actively acquire fiction. So then I went to the ACFW conference, American Christian Fiction Writers, and I was, signed up for one-on-one appointments with editors and just waiting with my little one sheet and my pitches. And I just really felt a kinship with all the people who were contestants for American Idol.
Yes.
That's like from a long time ago, but I was just like,
Yes.
I feel like an American Idol contestant.
Right.
But that's where I met my now editor at Bethany House. So it has all worked out. But yeah, I've always been a writer, but the types of things that I've written have changed.
Yeah, and I've talked to a couple of nonfiction writers and screenwriters and people who write for podcasts and all sorts of different things, right? Not just fiction writers. And one of the things that I think is true, a true thread through all of the different types of writing that you can do, is that at the end of the day, the best type of writing always is telling a story, whether that's in journalism, nonfiction or fiction, mainly because even in journalism, and I mean, there's obviously a type of writing where, yes, you want to tell what happened in this event and you don't want to color it in any specific manner, but typically that's still what you're doing, right? You're telling, hey, this thing happened, or you got to know about this. And in order to know about this, it's got to have a beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
And the same thing is true if you're writing a movie, or if you're even writing a script for a podcast, or if you're writing even a nonfiction devotional book. I'm sure there's a way in which you would even be like, because you even talked about these other military wives whose you were drawing their experience from, which again, they're using their experiences, they're using their stories to inform the devotional content. And so story is story, and it pervades so much of human experience. Obviously, as Christians, we believe that's because that's kind of how God has established this world, is that in some part it's driven by story. But that's where I'm kind of like, I'm always fascinated by that, by writing in different formats. And it's really just the different formats, because at the end of the day, I'm like, it's all underneath very much just storytelling. And we're storytellers, and sometimes we're telling stories that really happened, which often in your fiction books is still true.
Right.
So this really happened. All right. So here's my fun question that I came up with for you, Jocelyn.
Ooh, okay.
Because I was looking into your background for this interview, and you have on your website, you have, this getting into fiction when you weren't really thinking you would get into fiction. And so you're right, like you went and you just bought all the books on how to write novels, but you have a list on your website of your favorite authors, their favorite books on the craft. Okay. So you have this list of like, here's the books, like go get these books and read these. And so I'm sure you know that list, but some of them are like Getting into Character by Brandon Collins and 90 Days to Your Novel by Sarah Domet. Here's my question. So you have your list. You only get to keep one of them.
The Writer's Journey.
I wanted you to labor.
Did you want that answer to take like a few minutes? I'm sorry. I knew that one right away.
She's going to not be able to pick. She's going to be like, can I have 2 or 3? That was too fast. You already knew.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. I messed up our schedule. But no, if you had asked me my favorite book of what I've written, I'd be like, oh, they're my children, blah, blah, blah.
There you go.
But it's The Writer's Journey.
The others will know. The others will know.
Yeah, right.
The Writer's Journey. Okay, hold on. The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler. Am I saying that right? Probably.
I don't know.
Why that one? Tell us why that one.
Well, it takes the more classic structure of the hero's journey, and it just like tweaks it so it's more applicable to novel writers. And it has this structure where, we're introduced to the hero, and then he gets the call, and then he rejects the call, and then he's introduced to a mentor. And it's like, and if you think about like all these 12 different steps, and you think about movies, books, like from Star Wars to like whatever, it all follows this structure. And I was talking about this with someone else, and they said, well, then like, isn't it predictable? And I say no, because like, it's general enough where it can be, you can make it specific to your story and your characters, but it helps you structure a story and have it just wrap up in the end without the middle sagging, I guess. So, I mean, the other books are all good. There's nothing wrong with them. But if I had to just keep one and give the rest away, I would keep The Writer's Journey.
That's awesome. I will say this, which I'm sure you would probably affirm this, to aspiring writers, is definitely, though, consume books on writing. But what I think sometimes you can fall a trap into it, or at least this, not that I read too many of those in the beginning, but you can kind of fall into the trap of trying to find a secret formula to it
Yeah.
all,
Mm-hmm.
which there's no secret formula to it all.
Right.
I think sort of getting the basics down, understanding, like, especially story structure is really, really important. The books that I found most helpful as a writer for me were books that addressed specific writing challenges I had, which I think it takes a while to learn what those are for you. And so like deep POV was an early challenge for me. And so, I read a great book on that that helped kind of unlock that a little bit for me.
Right.
And so that may be different for everybody. Some people may like come into it being like, I dream in deep POV. I don't know what you're talking about, and like, but for them, it's going to be something different. And so I think the books that are more like, hey, here's how to write a novel in X amount of days, or whatever. Or I think the popular ones like what was it? The Dummy's Guide to Writing a Novel or something like that. Right. Those are great. Learn structure, learn storytelling, figure out this is where, again, writers retreats potentially and critique groups come in handy, because then you can start to learn what are my blind spots in writing, what am I struggling with, and then go get books that have to do with that. So,
and I think the other thing is to just keep in mind that some things are taught and some things are caught. So read good books, read really good books, like not just on the craft of writing, but just read good novels. And if you're reading a novel and you think to yourself, I could have written this, I'm good, I've arrived, then you're not reading high enough. Like reach higher, get other books until you're like, this is so amazing that I kind of feel like giving up.
Right.
Don't give up. Don't give up. But if you have that feeling, just know that you're not alone, because like I have other author friends, and sometimes we'll like let it slip that while we were reading their book to endorse it, we were kind of thinking about ending our own career because their book is so good.
It's too good.
But it's not, don't, I'm just saying that tongue in cheek. There is room on the bookshelf, all kinds of books.
Yeah.
Read good books.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, the time has come. The moment and the hundreds, just getting tens of people watching this are waiting for, which is the review. Now, I always, the best review is always if it's completely gone.
Wow.
And so it's gone.
Wow. Okay.
So I liked it.
Good.
I actually liked it. Like, I'm not saying that because you're on the show. I know that's what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
He's just saying it. But here's what I would say. As much as I am like, to fruit desserts and fruit flavored things, I actually do. I was thinking about it as I was drinking it. Like apple juice and apple cider and, fruit drinks. And so as I was drinking it, I was like, oh, I like this. Like, I built up all of the, like, I don't know. And then I was just kind of like, it is it's weird because, I've had hot apple cider before, but it's still different from that. Like, I'm not going to say it's like that, which, probably, honestly, I'd probably say I like this better, maybe just because it's as a tea, it's not as like punch you in the face.
Right. And it's not like super, super sweet. Like you think of like caramel apples or candy apples. It's not like that. It's like I don't know, deeper, robust. I don't even know the words, but I just like it a lot.
If I was more of a snob, I could be like, oh, it's the pie notes and the,
the pie notes.
I don't know. So anyway, here's my I totally recommend this as a tea, especially if you like apple pie. And what I think is really, really great about it, and here's what I'll say is, you don't just get the apple pie taste as you're drinking it. The smell is fantastic, and so your room smells like fall, basically.
It's so comforting.
With the tea. So great beverage. I loved it.
Good.
That's what I love about this show is I've tried. I don't think there's there might be one coffee that I've tried that I've actually had before, or one drink that I've tried, because I've even tried like random drinks that I had not even tried before. So anyway,
Okay.
it's been great. Loved it.
Good.
Jocelyn, tell us where we can find you online. And we
Okay.
want to know how to bug you on social media, just like you were talking about. So
Yes, I'm there all the time. No, yes. So start with my website, jocelyngreen.com, Jocelyn. Well, it's probably already printed on your screen, right? Great. Love
right.
it. So start with jocelyngreen.com, and then there's a contact tab, which I think has links to all of my social media handles. I'm pretty good about Instagram and Facebook. Twitter, I may check like once every couple weeks. So if you're there, I'll just like wave a couple times a month, but Facebook and Instagram are pretty much, and I'm on Goodreads. So if you're interested, I read a lot. If you're interested in following my reviews of the things that I'm reading, build up your TBR list, those good books. I'd love to see you there.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you can find out more about my novels at andrewhuffbooks.com. I have links to social platforms there. And I'm going to throw this in there because this is probably like episode 13 and I haven't done any of this before. If you like these videos, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll get notifications when these go live. And I love introducing you to new authors and I love showing you how to do this because that's the thing that fascinates me the most is how we even all do this.
So, right. How does this happen?
Yeah. I just woke up one morning and there was a book with my name on it. No, I'm just
kidding. The dream.
Right. This has been Books at Brew. I hope to have tea in person with you one day soon. But thanks for being on, Jocelyn.
It was so much fun. Thanks for having me.